Good evening YouTube, Philly Joe here. Right, this is the big one. This is the video I've wanted to do for a long time now. This is going to be my top 10 favourite video game soundtracks of all time. Now, I had to decide whether I'm going to go for original soundtrack scores or include the titles such as Grand Theft Auto, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater that all have licensed music within the game, not original video game scores. What I've decided to do is leave those out and make another playlist for, for games which have just licensed titles. So original scores only. Bit nervous about this video, I tell you. I think I've spent about 3 months deciding exactly what to put in my top 10 because I love music and I love video games, and it's just that whole amalgamation of it all that comes down to this basically. I have my top 10. Before I go into that, I'm going to do some honourable mentions of all the video games that didn't make the list. Many excellent soundtracks on here. Just going to run through a few. So we'll start off with the Super Mario games, such as Super Mario 64, Super Mario World, Super Mario 3, just absolutely amazing, nostalgic tunes. You must have played some Mario games. You know the score. It's just, oh, Rosie just moved. I thought I woke her up then. Luckily not. Right, I'm just going to reel them off. So I've got F-Zero, classic title for the Super Nintendo, amazing soundtrack. If I stick to some Super Nintendo games, Super Ghouls and Ghosts, that is a soundtrack that is incredible. Doom, a couple of others here. Donkey Kong Country, didn't make the list. It was so close to making this my top 10. So I'm just going to reel off some of this now. Silent Hill, the music for Silent Hill just made the games with its atmosphere, and it's because they weren't games to make you jump. It was all about in the mind. That's why I preferred the Silent Hill games to Resident Evil games. Although I like both of them, but I just preferred Silent Hill that bit more. Tomb Raider, the Tomb Raider series didn't make the list. I'm going to just keep repeating myself, like if I just keep saying incredible soundtracks, I'm absolutely gutted that I can only choose 10 for this list. So I'm just going to reel off the rest. How many times have I said reel off already? Right, okay, last time. I'm going to reel them all off now. So I've got Metal Gear Solid 1 and 2 and 3 for the soundtracks. The Last of Us, my favourite video game of all time, didn't make the list. And I'm just looking on the internet here, and it's in the top 3 soundtracks of all time on one video game website. So yeah, Killer Instinct. Alright, Rob, just reel them off. Okay, Starwing, Kirby's Dream Land, Solar Striker, Tetris, a couple of Game Boy games I'll just put all together there. GoldenEye on the Nintendo 64. Some Dreamcast titles. We've got Rez, Shenmue 2, and a couple of Nintendo games, Mega Man, the original Mega Man series, which I've only recently started playing, but the soundtrack's just incredible. Love it. Anyway, done. Honourable mentions, done. This is it. Right. Number 10. My 10th most favourite video game soundtrack of all time is Parappa the Rapper on the Sony PlayStation. This is going to be controversial, and I know it's a complete Marmite game. You either love it or you hate it, but I absolutely love it. It's just the funnest, quirkiest. It's the first ever proper weird game I ever played. Very Japanese, very cartoony, very quirky, awkward, surreal, and you play a rapping dog called Parappa who has a lot of friends. and they have, I think it's 6 levels where they have to rap along, like Prap has to rap along with people who give them life advice for all the scenarios that go through the game. I'm going to be playing some music, I hope, right now, so you can hear what tracks there are on the game. About 2 years ago they re-released it on the Sony PlayStation 4, a remaster, and I played it and I platinumed it because I absolutely love it and adore it to pieces. It's weird, not a lot. As I say, it's a proper Marmite game. If you've never played it, give it a try, see what you think. You'll probably hate it, or you might just absolutely love it. Anyway, that was number 10. Number 9. A Game Boy game made the top 10, and it wasn't Tetris, as I'd already read that in the honourable mentions. Remember, this is my list. Do your own list if you want, but my list states that my 9th favourite video game soundtrack of all time is Super Mario Land on the Game Boy. I can't begin to tell you like the nostalgia I have for this game. It's the Nintendo game was my first ever video game console, and I had Tetris and Super Mario Land, and I played those games all the time. If I weren't at school, if I wasn't out, if I wasn't on holiday, constantly playing these video games with all the batteries and hooked up to the battery power pack at home, and trying to sit under the what do you call it? A lamp. And trying to sit under a lamp when they've got the light switched off, so I could continue playing my Game Boy, because you didn't have the backlight then. You just had the original LCD screen with about 4 colours, like grey, and black or something. And yeah, with my headphones in, because I wasn't allowed to play the music out loud. It was doing my mum and dad's nutting, and yeah, tried for about 3 years to actually complete the game itself. Eventually completed it, and the tracks on there are just simply brilliant. I mean, for the game, like the Nintendo Game Boy, absolutely phenomenal soundtrack, and it's my number 9. Number 8, Street Fighter 2. It's just amazing. I was thinking to myself, I wonder if there's any fighting video games that I'm going to put in this list, and I just suddenly thought, it's got to be Street Fighter 2. Has to be, because that was the first ever fighting video game I ever played. And just remembering being in the arcades, going to the arcade after school, or if I was going around the shops, I'd quickly run in and play Street Fighter 2 for a bit. And yeah, I'm going to play a couple of tracks now over while I'm talking. My favourite ones, definitely Ken's stage, Guile's stage, Dalsim's stage. Like, those 3 are my top 3 favourite tracks on the game. And yeah, everyone loved Street Fighter 2. Everyone had their favourite character. Everyone used to queue up in the arcade to play it, and when it got released on the Super Nintendo, never put it down. It used to always be around my mate's house, me and him, a couple of other lads, taking it in turns. When it stays on, I was always, I think it was Guile to start with a lot, and then became, I think, Blanca after a while. But yeah, brilliant reiterations such as Street Fighter 2 Turbo, Super Street Fighter 2, just enhanced the whole experience of it. Awesome soundtrack. Now, number 7, as I was saying, would there be any fighting video games in this list? I have another one. This is from a series of games released on the Sony PlayStation initially. The first 3 games were released, and this was also in my top 10 video games of all time, and that is Tekken 3 on the Sony PlayStation. That game is just brilliant. It introduced the whole techno vibe that Tekken has, and a lot of other new, I won't talk too much about the game because if you played Tekken before, you know what I'm talking about. But the soundtrack itself introduced so many different like atmospheres for each of the players' stages, and like Martial Law, Paul Phoenix, Heihachi Mishima, King, and the boss battles. brilliant soundtracks. I actually, when I used to play the game back when I was about 15 now, I think, or maybe 16, I used to just go into the museum mode, the theatre mode, and then just play the game, like play the music on the BGM sound, and then just leave it to run. Because especially Paul Phoenix's soundtrack, which I'm hopefully playing right now, is it's just so good. It's absolutely amazing, so hard, and yeah, I can't fault Tekken 3. So yeah, I thought it another fighting video game on there, my top 10. Now remember, this is my list. This is not exactly the best soundtracks in the world. Go on the internet to have a look at that. This is my list. Do you like my pink pen, by the way? Right. She's still not awake, thank God. Right, number six. Number 6 is a video game that's very near and dear to me, and it's Shenmue on the Sega Dreamcast. This is, as you know, one of my favourite video games of all time, and it is also one of my favourite video game soundtracks of all time. The atmosphere that this game creates, and the music, and the sounds that it makes. This was the game that first got me into like action adventure, RPGs, fighting, a lot of fighting elements within the video game itself, and just took me to another world when I was playing it. And very much the soundtrack helped with the whole, when you're just walking through the streets, you can hear this serene kind of mood lit sounds. I mean, the theme itself is as beautiful as it is, but when you're walking through and you can hear like birds in the background, and the swishing and the swaying. I'm going on a bit of a tangent here, I'm sorry, but I'm playing this soundtracks as I speak, and I just absolutely love this video game, and its soundtrack just takes me to another world. Anyway, without going too cheesy, that was my number 6, so we're halfway. I need to take one more drink before we go to the top 5. Right, number 5. The Legend of Zelda, the Ocarina of Time on the Nintendo 64. I have only recently just been playing this video game. I knew of it, and I watched people play it back in the day, and I think I played it for a couple of days tops, but never ever got into it as much as I have now. I've now got to the point where wherever I go, I just visit there just to listen to the soundtrack, and even just to switch the game off and on again to listen to this theme is just one of the best opening video game themes ever for anything, not even video games. Like, it's just beautiful. I mean, like, when I'm actually playing soundtracks in the car on the way to work, that's when I know that these are my favourite video game soundtracks of all time. Some tracks here, like, it's definitely the opening theme is my favourite. Inside a House and Lost Woods I've got written down here as my favourite of the tracks, and there's many more. Pardon me. And yeah, it's absolutely beautiful soundtrack. Right, I feel like I'm getting through this quite quickly, which is good, because the amount of people that I come across and say, "You got to cut your videos down. You can't be doing 40 to 50-minute videos." I said I can, because they're my videos, but I know you won't be tuning in all the way through. So I'm hoping that I've got enough content here to keep it going. Okay, number 4, Final Fantasy VII on the Sony PlayStation. This video game is, it's seminal. It's the video game that started it all for me when it comes to role-playing games and fantasy and action adventure. This soundtrack is just beautiful when it comes to every scenario that you go into the game. You've got my favourite soundtracks, favourite tracks from the game here. I've got Aeris's theme, Oppressed People, and definitely the very last boss, Sephiroth, in the game. The track is called One Winged Angel, and that track alone as a track is my favourite video games track. Yes, this is at number 4, but that track alone, it's just okay. I'll call it my favourite boss battle music of all time. How's that? Yeah, favourite boss battle music. So yeah, Final Fantasy VII, I still love it to this day. I haven't played much of it recently, but again, there's a remake coming out next year for the Sony PlayStation 4, which I'm absolutely so excited about. I can't wait. I've still got about half a year to go for that. But yeah, cannot wait to hear what it sounds like, what it looks like when it comes through that remake on the PlayStation 4. So yes, Final Fantasy VII is my number 4. Number 3, Jet Set Radio is incredible. Jet Set Radio on the Sega Dreamcast. If you've never played it, buy yourself a Sega Dreamcast. Just play it. This soundtrack is absolutely awesome. It should have been number 1 on the list. Come to think of it, I listen to this soundtrack at least once a week in the car. It's that good. Ever since the year 2000 or 2001 when the game first came out, I used to record this soundtrack. I'd burn it onto a disc and play it on the Sony Discman when we were walking to work. It was that good, especially when MP3s came out about early to mid noughties, burnt it on there as well. I just absolutely love this. It's like J-pop with a bit of hip-hop chucked in, a bit of soul, funk. It's crazy. This soundtrack is just awesome. I urge you to just go straight to another video now, type in Jet Set Radio soundtrack and give it a listen, or just play the video game, because I can't stress enough how much I love this soundtrack. Anyway, get really excited now, we've got down to the final 2. So, Jet Set Radio for the Sega Dreamcast was my number 3. Number 2, Sonic the Hedgehog for the Sega Mega Drive / Sega Genesis. Because it's my list, I also have Sonic the Hedgehog as my second favourite video game of all time. It's definitely the soundtrack up there with the gameplay that makes this video game. Everyone knows that first music of the Green Hill Zone. As soon as you start the video game, as soon as the intro comes along with Sonic, also other zones such as Starlight Zone, Scrap Brain Zone, Labyrinth Zone, Marble Zone. Oh, it's just so good. And the boss battle music. I just remember being there about 9 or 10 years old, watching someone play this for the very first time. I've been absolutely blown away. I think I already said that on my favourite video games of all time soundtrack. Favourite video games of all time video. That it's also the soundtrack that makes this video game. Yes, Sonic's awesome and the gameplay is brilliant, but this music, I mean, funny story, the Starlight Zone music, when my daughter was born, I actually used to whistle that song to her as she was going to sleep, because it's just such a beautiful song. And yes, it's looped, it's only about 50 seconds long looped, but I absolutely adore that piece of music. So here we are, my number 1 favourite video game soundtrack of all time. Oh, so many video games, so many good soundtracks, and we're down to this. My number 1 video game soundtrack of all time is the Streets of Rage trilogy on the Sega Mega Drive. Yes, it's 3 games, but I don't care. It's my list. I can choose what I want. I'm having all 3 games in number 1. Streets of Rage 1. Tracks such as Beatnik on the Ship, Violent Breathing, Fighting in the Street. Phenomenal soundtrack. I mean, this is just the first game as well. The second game has to be the greatest video game soundtrack ever of all time, because straight away you recognise the music, very hip hop, techno, a lot of bass. How they managed to get these songs out the Sega Mega Drive, I have no idea, because Sega Mega Drive, I remember just the video games sounded horrible on it. Absolutely horrible. Not all of them, but some of them very clanky, very dirty it sounded, but I just preferred the Super Nintendo's sound chip and the soundtracks for the video games on there. But when I first played the Streets of Rage games, that was it. I thought, it's like they've just crapped on every other Sega Mega Drive game and just come out with this, like the one lot of video games that actually have brilliant soundtracks. Cool, I'm withering on here. It's really sorry, everyone. It's just, I've wanted to get this off my chest for so long. Wanted to do this video for so long. And I hope I haven't overrun what we're about 22 minutes. It's not too bad. Well, 22 before editing. Anyway, Streets of Rage 2. It was set the mark for set the benchmark for all kind of techno-based soundtracks, and also Streets of Rage 3 was kind of the difficult third album for composer Yuzo Koshiro, who is an absolute god in my eyes. But Streets of Rage 3, I would also say I prefer to Streets of Rage 2 when it comes to the soundtrack, and almost the video game as well, because Streets of Rage 3 soundtrack is like, I can only compare it to like a concept album. It was like something he was just trying, like just to see if he can do it. Streets of Rage 1, very techno. Streets of Rage 2, perfect. So many good banging tunes. Techno, hardcore, anything you can get out of the Yamaha sound system of the Sega Mega Drive. Whereas Streets of Rage 3 just sounded like, if I can compare it to the Prodigy's career, you've got Streets of Rage 1 and 2 are like the Experience and Jilted Generation album, and maybe Fat of the Land, whereas Streets of Rage 3 is their industrial sound of Always Outnumbered, Never Outgunned, and a few of the later albums. It's all incredible music, and the catchy choruses, just the beats are so good. And again, like every couple of months, I'll just put the video game on, put any of the 3 Streets of Rage on just to play it, just so I can listen to the soundtrack as well as chill out and, you know, dish out some street justice as you do. So yes, we're finally there. We did it. So Streets of Rage trilogy. The Streets of Rage games are my favourite video game soundtracks of all time. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this isn't a load of blah. I'm hoping I'll do some really good video, like some editing with some music in this, and she hasn't moved much. She's bloody useless when it comes to hello. I didn't mean to call you bloody useless. Good God. I'll leave her alone, bless her. So thank you so much for watching. Please hit the like button, subscribe, and follow, because I'm definitely going to be doing a lot more videos now. So thank you very much, and I'll see you on the next one.